Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Steve Curran, Leader of the Council, and I'm chairing this Cabinet meeting tonight. Welcome to other members here and officers and members of the public. And to any members of the public who are watching, hope you enjoy the evening. We've got a reasonably big agenda. We've got declarations of interest to go first in communications. But before we do that, people may notice that we're a few members short. That's because we're following the government's guidance with regard to COVID Plan B, which is only come into work if you have to. So we've made a decision that to support that cabinet members who don't have a report to present tonight are not here, and officers similarly who are not supporting cabinet members who don't have a report to present here are not here either. So that's why we're slightly depleted this evening. I'm sure everyone understands that. So the cabinet members who aren't here won't be given apologies. They'll be given a dispensation of some description, which will be noted in the record for attendance. Okay. So do we have any matters of interest? Anyone? Any other communications? No? Okay, thank you. And we move on to agenda item 2, which is minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of December. Are there any matters arising or any inaccuracies anyone wants to raise with me? Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5. Anything? No? People happy for me to sign? Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 3, which is Councillor Radrawat, Council Tax Base 22-23. Shantanu.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Shantanu Radrawat, Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. This report is our annual report as we lead into the budget which we presented to Council on the 1st of March. Quite an important report. This deals with the Council tax base. So this is the base number of bandy properties in the borough at a certain point in time that forms the basis of our calculation, as well as our assumption around the collection rate of 98%. That is a very good number. That's consistent. So despite everything that's happened throughout the last couple of years, actually thanks to residents who are able to pay council tax, paying on time and in full, so that maintains that rate. The report also asks for a delegation to the Executive Director for Finance to improve the NNDR return as set out in the report. So I move the report.
Thanks, Shantanu. I'm happy to second the report. Reserve my right to speak. Anyone else? Comments, questions? No. Thank you. I would just add that that collection rate is outstanding considering where we've been over the last 2 years. So thanks to you, Clive, and the team, and everyone else through our contractors involved in ensuring that we collect our council tax. It's vital that we do that to enable us to provide and protect services, especially for the most vulnerable, and that's really important. And we've got some very difficult decisions to make about council tax going forward in the February budget, which I know will be difficult for all councillors and for the council. So I'm happy to second the report. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, we now move on to agenda item 4, which is update scheme for financing schools financial regulations. I'm going to ask Councillor Bruce to lead on this one. Tom.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tom Bruce, Cabinet Member for Education and Children's Services. So the Cabinet tonight is asked to approve the updated scheme for financing schools and also approve the updated schools financial regulations. Part of the first one, the scheme for financing schools, includes approving the clawback of £276,000 from balances from 4 of our schools. Section 4 of the report outlines the reasons for the updating, the changes, sorry, to the scheme for financing schools, and Section 7 discusses the updated schools financial regulations. Important to note in both of those that both of those reports have been consulted on and agreed by Schools Forum, which is why they're able to be here in their form that they're in this evening. Two of the main changes to the scheme for financing schools, this is in section 4, bullet point 4.3 is section 4, which is the schools balances control mechanism, which I mentioned earlier, and I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. And also section 10, updated to reflect the changes in DfE guidance around risk protection arrangements. Update to the schools financial regulation to reflect changes to the procurement regulation. So those are just some of the significant changes to those two. Both are in the appendix of the report that people are able to read at their leisure. I think the most significant aspect of the first one, the scheme for financing schools, is about the schools balance control mechanism. Schools hold significant balances, reserves, for want of another word, within their school budget, which is absolutely appropriate and right that they do. Schools need to be ready financially for issues that may arise throughout the year. We firmly, I certainly do, this cabinet and this council firmly support them doing that. What this talks about is the excess balances. This was agreed 4 to 5 years ago by Schools Forum as part of a way of recalibrating how balances, those reserves, were looked at and how they were held, ensuring that schools were only holding what they need to hold and nothing beyond that. It's taken a number of years to get to this point, but I think it's important to have gone through the significant process, getting agreement from head teachers and schools and governing bodies along the way. Essentially, what we're looking at is 15 schools who have excess balances holding £2.7 million. Now, as part of the scheme, we've identified 7 of those schools, and they're laid out in section 6.4, and 6.8, that we would look at their balances and make a decision based on the criteria which is in the report as to whether the council, Schools Forum, agree, and therefore cabinet agree, to claw back any of their excess balances. I did mean to mention earlier that when we talk about excess balances, we're not just talking about all their balances. It is only those balances that they've been holding above 8.3% of their budget for 3 years or longer, and that are not being used in any significant way elsewhere. So looking at those schools, 3 of the schools submitted, 3 of the schools with higher than expected balances due to underspend submitted representations to Schools Forum, and it was agreed by Schools Forum that one of those schools, Ivory Bridge, should not have to we would not be clawing back on their balances due to significant difficulties within their the population of the school and falling roles. And I would ask cabinet obviously to agree to that this evening. The other 3, we are suggesting that we do claw back their balances. Of the 3 schools indicating higher than expected excess balances due to delays in completion, only one of those, Walpole, I would suggest that I'm recommending that we claw back their balances this evening. That's laid out in 6.12, 6.13 and 6.14. And the money clawed back under this balance control mechanism will go forward to supporting the high needs block, which is severely in deficit, I would say, due to lack of government funding. But it's important to note that this is not just going into some bottomless pit in the council, that it is going to support a very significant area of financial difficulty that the council, the DSG section of the council, is in, and supporting back into supporting the children in our borough. So I move the report.
Thanks very much, Tom. Councillor Edgware.
Thank you, Leader. I formally second the report, and just reiterate everything Tom said. I think one of the takeaways from this is the strong relationship we as a council have with our schools. The schools forum is incredibly successful. It's not just a talking shop. They do make concrete decisions, and they discuss issues as they arise. Strengthening the protocol that exists just strengthens that relationship. And as Councillor Bruce said, the word is used is clawback, but actually this does help other parts of the education sort of system that I think will benefit all schools as well in the future. So I formally second the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, anyone else? No, I would just like to echo those points. I was a former cabinet member for education. I know the hard work that goes in to the forum from heads and deputy heads right across the piece in Hounslow, and the fantastic work they do under most difficult conditions, none more so over the last couple of years. So being able to make really strong and difficult financial decisions in a difficult time is all credit to them, and to you, Tom, for all the work you're doing with officers. So more than happy to support the recommendations of the report. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to agenda item 5, which is the housing revenue account and service charges 22-23. Councillor Bath.
Thank you, Leader. Every year we, as you know, we set the rent levels for our council buildings, our council properties, and this report here is sets out the following proposed changes that we wish to make. So the level of rent that is set every year is based on a government formula, which is CPI, which is the current consumer price index, plus 1%. And this is a government rent policy which came into effect in 2019. And prior to this, there was a rent freeze as a result of the Welfare Reform Act, but that was stopped in 2019. And since then, local authorities are able to put up their rent according to this formula. So what we are proposing is to use the government formula, which is the 3% plus 1, which would be 4.1%, and that would apply to our rents and service charges. I just want to make a note, to make a point really about our rents, which are comparatively low in Hounslow. In comparison to other local authorities. And I think it's important to note that. So for an example, just to give you a rough idea, with a rent increase on a 3-bedroom property in the borough, it's probably just under £25 a month, if that. So that is relatively low, which I hopefully will reassure people. And I think also, just to where people do fall into rent arrears, if that happens, we have a sort of no eviction policy, in the sense that if people are struggling to meet their rent, then we will help them in whatever way possible, whether that's helping them to claim for discretionary housing payments, or helping them to claim the benefits that they're entitled to, or working with their tenancy sustainment officer to make sure that they keep the property and maximise their income. And I also want to stress that all our properties are below the local housing allowance, and that's really important to note. So even with the increase, they will remain below the local housing allowance, because that is, of course, really important for people who are on a universal credit, which means that even if their rent increases, they will be covered by rent payments from the universal credit. So that's important to make a note of that. So obviously, or any rent increase that we get will go into the housing revenue account, which is a ring-fenced account, and that is used to maintain our council stock, to make sure that it's fit for purpose, that we're able to carry out our repairs, and of course also to ensure that we have enough money that will go towards our house building programme. So what I'm proposing here is recommendations 1.1 to 1.4, and I move the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Leader. I formally second the report and echo what Councillor Bath said. It's important that we acknowledge that this is based on a formula set by government, and we're not an outlier in taking this action. I think most London boroughs will be in a very similar position and having to do that. And actually, whilst you can take the rent increase in isolation, actually you must look at the level of support that we as a council offer. Councillor Bath alluded to it in terms of housing support payments and the like. But there is a whole host of support measures available to our residents, so that they when they fall on hard times, we are there to act as a safety net, which I think is really important. And for me, Councillor Bath is absolutely right to say that this money gets put into a ring-fenced account, which then helps us to invest in our estates and invest in the HRA. We are very ambitious for the borough. We're ambitious for those that are looking for housing, and we have a very ambitious housing target that we meet every time, and I'm sure we'll meet in the next administration as well. And this will absolutely help this, as well as maintaining our existing council stock to a high level, which is what residents demand. They are front and foremost in our minds at every turn. So I second the report, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make any comment?
Sorry, Chair, just to be clear, Councillor Bath, you mentioned points 1.1 to 1.4, but there are 3 other recommendations in
sorry.
the report.
Absolutely. It's 1.1 to 1.7.
Everyone clear? Thanks very much. I would just add, it's very difficult, but as Councillor Bath has pointed out quite rightly, we are in a better position than some other local authorities nearby to us. We have to protect the most vulnerable, and we do that through our financial support schemes. And we've got a very generous council tax support scheme as well as other payments that people in financial hardship will face. But, we do need to call on the government to help as well. We've seen massive rises, or we anticipate massive rises in energy costs, which affect everyone. I would hope that the government takes the lead and reduces or stops VAT on energy costs. So that there's lots of things that central government can do to ease the burden. So we've got mortgages going up, we've got employers' national insurance going up, cost of living going up, and unfortunately, we're put in a position where we've got no option but to put up council rent and service charges, because we have to protect the stock and keep it improving. We've got an enormous fire prevention program to fund, and we want to build new council homes. We've already built over 1,000 council homes under this administration, 4 months, well, it was 6 months actually ahead of schedule, and we need to be that ambitious, I think, at least next time round. So it's really important that we make prudent financial decisions for the benefit of all of our residents in Hounslow, and I think that does that. So I'm more than happy to support the report. Okay, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to a suite of reports from me, which is agenda items 6 and 7 and 8 to start with. But I would like, really, if you don't mind, colleagues, to take agenda item 7 first before 6, and I'll explain why. Because I think this suite of office reports come together, but it's held together by the Prosperity and Place and Draft Strategy. If we go to page 186. So we're asked to, I'm asking you to approve the recommendations on page 186, 1, 2, and 3. And particularly on 2, which is to financially support the work we need to do going forward to ensure that Hounslow changes, and it has to change in light of what's happened over the last 2 years. So some of the key points, I think, are retain Hounslow's economic activity, which has been badly hit, as we all know, during COVID. We've got to stop the decline. And we've got to help business activity, especially small businesses. And I know Councillor Rajawat has led the charge on some supporting small businesses with a £20 voucher scheme that ended on the 24th of December, which has been well received right across the borough by residents, but particularly for small businesses. I've been very pleased with that initiative. We've got to re-image our future economy. What does it look like? It's got to be a green recovery led. We've got to change the way we do things, the way we seek to change and influence the local economy. With the decline of the airline industry, hundreds, if not thousands of people have been affected by that. It's slowly coming back, but we need to do things differently. And we need to encompass innovation, technology and creativity. And I think we've seen some of that already from our residents and businesses and community groups over the last couple of years. And we have to reskill and re-employ people, particularly those who've been affected by COVID, particularly those been affected by the decline in the airline industry. But it's right across the piece. The number of dry cleaners I didn't realise have been affected so greatly because people are not getting their clothes dry cleaned because they're not going to the office. And many of our dry cleaners are struggling. And that's just one tiny example of how the supply chain or the service chain has been affected by COVID and the impacts that has. So we need to encourage business to re-employ, re-skill, re-educate, if you like, and to do things differently. We need to provide proper planning and development frameworks as a guide to the right development, and that's all contained in here and in the other suites of documents. But it's about unlocking good growth. We don't want bad growth. We don't want growth that causes short-term profits for people. We want growth that's sustainable. It gives long-term careers and futures for our young people, for our elderly. That is good for the environment, is green. All of the things that residents over the last 2 years have been telling us how important it is for them. We know that Hounslow is a vibrant, prosperous borough. It's changed since 2010, and it's changed for the better. And I think that these documents will help us do that. And then if you go through onto page 188, it talks about the economic context. I've touched on that, about prosperity in place. And if you want to say anything about how we changed our procurement processes, Councillor Rajawat, and how that's benefited businesses. We've already mentioned the Shop Local campaign, but I think it's just for people to know what we've done around how we procure things would be really helpful if you wouldn't mind contributing on that. Thank you.
Do you want me to second it at the same time? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, happy to second it, Leader. Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, as a council, we realised very early on that we're in a unique position to be able to leverage a lot of this. And what this report also says to me when I read it is about the partnerships that we hold, and how we understand that it's not just the London Borough of Hounslow that will reimagine the place, but it's also the partnerships that we hold in the local area. In terms on the specifics on procurement, we are very focused now in our procurement processes around social value and the positive impact that has on the local economy. We measure it. Members have sight of it and they can challenge it and interface with it regularly, and it's something that we demand. Any contractor that contracts with the council, we ask them to consider London Living Wage, which I think is really important as well. But fundamentally, people assume that if you contract locally with local businesses, it's going to be more expensive. And actually, local businesses are really up for the challenge, and they're not necessarily more expensive. And that is money that is going back into the local economy. And I think, again, that is very visible. It's something that we are constantly pushing and ramping up. And I think that's to the benefit of the local economy. Apart from that, working with the Chamber of Commerce to help businesses more recently with the Innovate and Grow program, the round 3 of that, using ARG funds that the government gave us to really help businesses prosper and think about where the next step for their business is, and offering them signposting, and the skills escalator is also really, really important. So this report brings together all those various strands, and I think it's a really important report, and I'm very happy to second it.
Thanks very much. Any other comments? Tom?
I would just say, I mean, with all the reports like this, it can often be difficult because there's a sense of the possibility without always the concrete minutiae of things that are going to be happening. I think Councillor Rajavat has given a very good example of the beginnings of a concrete example there, but it is about our vision, and it can be criticised for being, well, where's the detail? But actually, I think as a council, as a Labour authority, as an administration in the last 12 years, certainly in the last 4 years, what we have shown is that vision then translates into actual action on the ground, actual specific points. I think the vision for our party, our group, members of our group, and the wider borough is a really important aspect to indicating where we want to go, what we want to be as a borough. Councillor Curran said earlier there have been significant changes since 2010. He's absolutely right. Since I was a youngster in the 90s, there have been significant changes since 2010, but certainly also in the last 4 years. And that's what this document, that's what this vision is giving us, and sending us on a path. It can be difficult. These changes, and we've seen a number of changes over the last few years in the borough, are difficult for all concerned, but they are the right approach. It is the right approach to be taking. It is the right direction to be doing. The focus on reimagining our borough, energizing our businesses, thinking about how individuals and companies and groups can prosper and be here, and it's making Hounslow a place to want to come to, not a place to want to go through. And that's absolutely what this document is saying. So, really wholeheartedly support this.
Okay, anyone else? No? All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. We're now moving back to agenda item 6, which is on a similar line. It is about Hounslow, which is really good, and it's about the draft plans for Feltham, Hounslow, Brentford and Chiswick town centres. There are main town centres, and it's about the vision documents that have been produced. I had some representation from people right across the borough around this document. I would say to them, their concerns about, is this the end of the story? Is this the end of the road on this? Absolutely not. It's probably the start of it. We won't capture everything that people's got on their minds. Things change. This is a dynamic document. And I know that people in Heston Residents Group, I know in your ward, Heston Action, are really on board and working really hard with us, and putting challenges in to us, which is absolutely right and proper. And it's the same in Brentford, it's the same in Osterley, it's the same in Isleworth, Feltham, Crampford, Hanworth, everywhere. Residents have risen up, if you like, in a positive way to work with the council, challenge the council where it needs to, and to work with to try and make a better place. And I've had, people from Chiswick. I know some people have been preoccupied with Cycleway 9 in Chiswick High Road. They've been preoccupied with low traffic neighbourhoods. But there's lots of residents groups I know out there who are not preoccupied with that. They do see Chiswick as a fantastic high street and a fantastic place to live and work. And I was only there on Sunday, having a coffee and a very nice croissant, actually. I won't say which establishment in case I get told off by the others. But I've had contact with the Friends of Turnham Green, Age Concern, Chiswick, West Chiswick and Gunnersbury Society, Grove Park Group, Strand on the Green. That, you know, they've all got that energy. They've all got that focus. We want to work with the council. We won't always agree with them. And it's, as I say, it's the same right across, whether it's Heston, Brentford, Feltham, Osterley, Hamworth, whereas Anslow West, wherever it is, people have really, really become engaged. So that's really valuable. Valuable to us as a council. And we know that our down centres were declining anyway before COVID, and it's hit particularly the retail, leisure, cultural, and hospitality industries. We know that, so we've got to kickstart that. And again, going back to the other document around how do we kickstart the local economy, you've heard some of that from Councillor Rajawat. So we've got to, as I say, support those existing town centre communities, welcome new ones, create new public-private partnership, attracting investment and funding, play an active role in mitigating the climate change and health economic equalities. And we know through the work we've done through Councillor Atterson around health inequalities, that there are many inequalities in our borough. We've identified that over the last 2 years, and we need to do something about that. So whether you're disadvantaged because of the money you earn, or how much money you earn, because of your health, because of your training and skills, because of your inability to get a job, everyone needs to be equal and supported if we're really going to make a difference. So those are the main points out of this document. Happy to take questions from anyone. And then we do need to work on, I think, going forward, is the town centre master plans. And again, that's where that real engagement with local communities comes in, is important. Okay, anyone else? No? Lily?
I was going to second the report and just say a few comments. Absolutely welcome the report, this and the previous one, because obviously they're both aligned together, and they set the framework for obviously some incredibly important direction in terms of moving forward. You talk about engagement when it comes to talking about our town centres, but I think that's probably something that we I certainly do at the doorstep, get asked more about than anything else actually, is how we're going to kind of re-energise our town centres. So I'm really pleased to see this. I'm also pleased to see that we've got a mixture of some sort of bespoke proposals, but also there are some, if you look at the engagement with the residents and stakeholders, there are some sort of common themes as well that occur, and also some sort of bespoke challenges that are obviously relevant to the different types of different areas, because obviously each town centre has its own sort of challenges. So it's good to see that, and I am really excited about it, and I look forward to seeing this and all the other work that we are going to do to make sure that we kind of bring sort of prosperity into the borough, and look at a sort of investing more economically, and just making the town centres sort of be a bit more responsive to people's needs. Because there are some common themes that come up, like greening the town centres, which seems to come up quite a lot, doesn't it? But I think there's a lot of buy-in from our residents, and of course we're totally aware of the fact that, you know, footfall has declined and now shopping habits have changed, but that doesn't mean that we can't energise and bring back, you know, revitalise some of our town centres, which I think is really important. So I'm really pleased to see this, and I look forward to the other reports and that you bring forward in the next stages. Thank you. Happy to second.
Echo what's been said already. I think this is very good. You know, again, echoing the points I made earlier about, you know, vision and thinking about what we're going to do moving forward at town centres, despite the difficulties economically over the past few years, up and down. I think I know they are very important to our residents. They are very, very important to lots of people. I suppose, please from me, this is with my ward councillor hat on from Hounslow South. I think it does mention here, while these documents are focused on the town centres, the connection to neighbourhoods parades will be considered in more detail in 2022, and that is really, really positive. In Hounslow South, we have 3 very small parades. One actually part of St John's Road, which is slightly longer parade, and round into London Road. But I think, you know, how those places connect to our town centres is really, really important. That more local shopping for people who may need to get a bus, walk a bit further, or even drive into our town centres, if because they're living further out, is important. But also, not just giving consideration to those parades, but how the residents that live there, their views are considered as part of this, but also in a separate sense. I think what I found from people speaking to me, their frustration is that it's not being considered. It's the businesses and the people who live close by, people who maybe have high usage of that, but the ones that live on the periphery, for want of a better word, and maybe use it more sporadically, their views are being sort of lumped in and therefore being diluted. So I think looking at some of those things in a slightly more nuanced way will be really important, because what we do want is not just delivering for those businesses, for the people that always are there, the people who live there, is actually drawing people in and drawing people towards, you know, those smaller parades and our town centres from elsewhere, and showing that real connection. So that would be my my plea for this going forward.
Thanks very much, Tom. Anyone else? No? Oh, sorry. Samia.
Thank you, Leader. Just a quick comment. I'm really glad to see this report. But previously, if we see in last 8 years and amount of work we have done, I'm just going to kind of say similar thing, that we have been speaking to local residents weekly, daily, and even some of them monthly basis. People are really happy what we have done in Feltham and what we're posing for Hanworth within our green spaces as well. This is something where, yes, public consultation, engagement events, and in future, if there is need to speak to the residents and see what they want us to do, I think it's really good. But at the same time, having a Hanworth ward councillor hat on, that's the thing we're working on, looking at our parades of shops and see how we can improve that part of it as well. That's what I just wanted to say. But overall, it's really good, and thank you.
Thank you, Samia. Shantali.
Thank you, Leader. A really positive report. As you know, I don't want to repeat what others have said. I think they're very important points, and you know, I know that will be taken into consideration. Again, going back to a couple of the points that we sort of raised earlier, you know, we've got a good track record on supporting the local economy. You know, if you look at the report that we just agreed before this one, you know, it makes it very clear. Pre-pandemic, we were the second fastest growing economy in London, behind the central London borough. That's amazing. That's phenomenal. So, you know, we have a track record of supporting the economy, but also attracting external funding as well. You know, if you look at the Creative Enterprise Zone to the west of to the east of the borough, you know, that's a real positive sign of money coming in to support the number of small and independent businesses that we have in the borough that we're incredibly proud of, and I feel like this will build on that whilst reimagining what the place looks like as well. So a really positive report.
If we go to the vote, all those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 8, and this is the report presents the Hounslow Draft Character and Design Code Supplementary Planning Document, an SPD. Cabinet is asked to approve the publishing of the draft SPD for public consultation. Some might look at this and say this is a very dry document, it's about planning. Well, it's a very important document to many of our residents. As you know, many of our residents groups started in life by looking at planning applications. I know I did when I was chair of the Griffin Park Residents Association back in the day. That's how I started getting involved in the community activity, was around a planning application for the old Griffin Park ground in Brentford. So it is important to people. so we do need to do this, and there will be a full and proper and transparent consultation with our community groups, businesses, etc. And I'll draw your attention to item 2, number 3. So prior to the adoption of the NMDC, Hounslow already started pioneering production of design code. The methodology used in emerging design codes was used by the national government as a best practice example to help the drafting of the NMDC. So there's a really credit to our planning team and for the work of our officers in getting that acknowledgement. It's really important. And if you go to carry on that page 198, you'll see at item 5 very clear about the consultation from March till April. And that will involve working with community groups, workshops, online consultations, notwithstanding COVID. And it's really important that we get involved, and we encourage all of our residents groups and individuals to get involved in that. So I'd like to move the report. Lily, would you like to second it?
I'm happy to second it.
Any questions or comments, anyone? No? All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Move on to agenda item 9, which is the establishment of a unified governance structure for the Gunnersbury Park estate. Samia, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. So this report, it's about I'm just asking the Cabinet to approve the recommendations from recommendation 1 till 10 on page 215, 216 is to seek the approved a change in governance of the Gunnersbury CSE, the community interest company, which was set up in 2017 to manage the operations at Gunnersbury Museum and Park. The recommendation is to the merge of the Gunnersbury CSE and the existing charitable body, the Gunnersbury Museum and Park Development Trust, into a single charity, with the KICS sitting as a charitable trading arm for the trust, and also moving the lease from CSE company to the trust while council retains the freehold. I think all the paper, everything is included here, and all the recommendations from 1 till 10, we're asking to Cabinet to approve. If there is any question, I'm happy to take.
Thanks very much, Samia. Any comments or questions? Lily.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm happy to support this report. In fact, I remember when the master plan was actually drawn up in 2012. So we've spent, we've put an awful lot of effort to get to where we have today. So well done to yourself, and of course all the previous Cabinet members as well who were involved in this. And I mean, it's really important that we have a high quality park and all the facilities that are available. And I have read through the report, and I don't have any questions about structure or anything, but the only comment to make, obviously, is that anything that we can do to make sure that we are able to be in a better position to attract funds for the park, I think it's really important. So if that is what will happen as a result, then I'm really happy to support the report, because we absolutely have done so much work and we've got to a really good place. And I think we've got to continue with that, because it's a really important asset for us. So well done.
Anyone else? I would just like to add, I've just recently been on a visit before Christmas to Gunnersbury, and I've got another meeting, I think, next week. So it is, one of the jewels in the crown of Hounslow and Ealing. We need to sell it more. We need to promote it to the west of the borough. In the east, it's pretty well known, but even there, it's not known enough. We've got a fantastic new sports hub there. We had the unfortunate arson attack, and we lost the It was fantastic pizza. So just think about it. It's a really nice. I would call it. What should I call it? Howard Pavilion. Yeah, the pavilion, and it was. I've been up there with friends, and they were really impressed with it. The work we've done with restoration of the house and all the other improvements to the grounds. I mean, on my visit, I said, well, why are there all these rows of cherry trees? And apparently, I think there was 48. I think it was 48. I'm trying to get someone to nod in front of me. Did I get the number right? It was around that. I've been told going up a bit. Anyway, a significant number of cherry trees donated by the Japanese government and the ambassador that came down, Japanese ambassador, as part of the Olympic legacy. So, it is on that international stage, and I can't wait to go back in a year or so and see all those lovely cherry trees, which some of you know are a favourite of mine. The more cherry trees we got in the borough, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So I look forward to those blossoming in the next couple of years. But it's a fantastic asset. The staff work really hard, the management team works very hard, and it has to change. It has to adapt. They've had some setbacks, but I think this change will be really positive. They got some exciting stuff coming up. I mean, I've seen stuff coming through on the license applications for what's going to be happening over the spring and summer. So really, really great opportunity. So delighted, Samuel, for bringing the report and all the work you've done to make this happen, and to officers, and obviously to the management team over in Gunnersbury Park. A real credit to the borough. Thank you very much. Samia.
Just a quick one I wanted to add in. After speaking to lots of residents from the West End of the borough about Gunnersbury, I think it's really, really well looked after. And I would like to say thank you to everyone who has been involved, and especially my parks team and all the officers. Everyone has worked extremely good. I've visited recently Gunnersbury as well. Even the sports hub, it's really, really popular. And whenever I go, without even just saying that I'll be visiting the park, I do see everyone working good and hard. And I think it's a really, really important and a good decision, better for us and the team. Thank you.
Thanks. I absolutely agree. And my only plea to those officers who are involved in it is make sure we advertise it and market it more in the west of the borough, and we'll get more people down there enjoying a fantastic asset. So I'm seconding that report. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 10, which is the SIL allocation, reporting on governance on the SIL and 106 funds. This is like an annual event, Clive, isn't it? And everyone's eyes light up when they see the amounts of money there, and then realise we can't spend it all the way we want to spend it. So if you're going to, cabinet members, if you're going to say, can we spend half of this or some of it in your ward, the answer is no, because strategic SIL is really important. We understand that. That's agreed with our partners how we spend that, and it's really important we recognise that. So that's for strategic infrastructure. Could be around health, transport, education, all of those areas where our strategic partners are involved. And there is another group that looks at, I think, Shan, you and I are on that group, where we project manage, if you like, the spending of the strategic SIL. So that's really important. And so, well, just before I wax lyrical a bit more on that, I ask you to approve the recommendations on page 318, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, I just wanted to mention about community SIL. And as we know, during COVID, we made the decision to move it into the Thriving Communities Fund. We think we'll probably have around £2 million going forward in the new financial year. So there will be ample opportunity for ward councillors to work with their local communities to put bids in for community funds via the Thriving Communities team. We've done a lot of work and understanding our communities, as you know, through One Hounslow. Thriving Communities team is up and running. So there's a real opportunity over the next few weeks and months to put in some really strong bids for that money. So that's really important to note. So other than, if anyone's got any questions, I'd like to move the report. No? Yes, sorry, Shan, I wasn't sure you just saying,
This one.
waving at me or.
No, again, if you're happy, Lily, I'll second it. Second the report, yeah. Yeah, just to say thank you, Leader. There's a lot more visibility in this report, and it actually shows how we're spending the money across the borough on key strategic projects. And actually, what I like about this is the evidence that shows that we've considered such a broad range, and some we've not taken forward this time. They maybe need to improve or be funded elsewhere. And I think that's really, really positive. And actually, everything that's in here will have a positive impact to the experience our residents feel in the borough. So yeah, really, really welcome the report, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Yeah,
Sorry to put you on the spot, lady. Can I just ask a question? I mean, it might be useful. Some of these ones that haven't been approved, I mean, almost all of them say could be funded through local SIL. What does that mean more broadly in terms of for these projects? If people are listening, what does that mean to people?
well, I think so the local SIL is the Farthing Communities Fund now. We've just said there's approximately just over 2 million for that going forward. It's for, certainly councillors can approach me via their, they can talk to their communities. Happy for them to come and see me, let's have some meetings and talk about what their bids are. Happy to do that. It's a transparent and open process. So if people got ideas, I mean, there are a lot of grants that will be coming forward. We've got grants around the Jubilee celebrations coming up in June. There's lots of grants being out there at the moment. We've got grants for up to 3,000 per ward for every ward in the borough. I've not spent my £1,000 yet with my residents. That's something I'm going to do as soon as I can. So there's 3,000 per ward at the moment sitting there waiting to be spent for every, and £1,000 basically for every councillor in the borough. So there's a lot of money there that we can support community groups, but certainly the ones that weren't successful, they could go to capital out of the general fund. There's another avenue. And there's obviously the Thriving Communities Fund. So there are other avenues, but there's no silver bullet with this. There's no easy answer. We must make sure, and Shantu and I and officers have put a lot of effort into making sure that the strategic still stuff is fit for purpose and the money can be spent, and we've got the proper management processes in place and governance and oversight to make sure it's spent properly and efficiently. So certainly there is flexibility around community SIL. So if you've got any projects, and I would implore anyone listening, talk to the local councils and let's have a chat. Lily, thanks, Tom.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment on the report and the fact that I obviously support it, and I'm sort of quite pleased to see that it's quite transparent and quite well laid out, and I think that's a massive improvement from before. So if I can just request that we continue with that format so that it's quite clear for people to see what the money is being spent on and what the projects are, because I think that's really important, because otherwise it's hard for people to comprehend exactly where the money is going and exactly how it's being used. So I'd support that going forward as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Anyone else? Samia.
Thank you, Leader. I think Councillor Bath has already said what I was going to say, but a couple of more things. Recently, I have been speaking to few councillors and we talk about bringing money into parks. But if I see page 324, I can see the successful projects, which is Beaversfield Parks play area improvements with Cranford and few others. I think it's just really nice to see there that we have these questions coming up from councillors and local residents to say, why are not we're not bringing in the SIL money, and where we're going out for the bid for another way of getting the funding in. But the most important point is this, that in this one I can see there is some already in, and I know there is a few unsuccessful ones as well, but I'm sure we'll be looking into it from the other way, like you've said, from Thriving Community Funds. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. I mean, I suppose it's pretty logical. You get, SIL and 106 through development, And if we don't have development, we don't get SILA 106. That means we don't get improvements to our infrastructure, community projects, etc. And it's because we've been seen as a borough where it's an attractive borough to come and develop and grow sustainably. That's why we've got these large amounts of SIL. It wouldn't happen if we didn't build. And we need to build. We need to build council houses. We need to build commercially because we need new jobs. And there's all sorts of things that development brings, which are really positive, and it's not just a negative. So there are positive sides to development, which include not only great places for people to live and work, good open spaces, but also the benefits of receiving 106 and SIL money. Okay. I'll just try not to cough. I do apologise. Right, all those, did someone second it, Lily? Thank you, Lily. All those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Right, we've got any referrals from committees? No. Urgent business, exclusion of the present public, but it was remiss of me, Howard, if you want to step outside, if that's right. If you look at agenda item 14, which is on the yellow, which is related to the agenda item 9, which I should have brought to everyone's attention. Just checking with Rachel if I do that now and ask people to note. Yeah, have you stopped the YouTube feed? Sorry. That's right, go on. If you stop it now. So I've asked the officer to stop the YouTube feed because we're dealing with a confidential agenda item, which is agenda item 14. Apologies to anyone watching or listening. Are we back on? Okay, sorry about that. Some slight confusion at the end there, but we have discussed that confidential agenda item number 14, and it hasn't changed the decision of the cabinet members in relation to their decision on agenda item 9, which was to approve unanimously. So that brings us to the end of the meeting. I've got no other urgent items. Date of next meeting is Tuesday, the 8th of February, which is 5 days after my birthday, I might add, 8th of February. Anyway, thanks very much everyone for coming. A miserable night, but quite enjoyable actually here. And if you're watching from home, I hope you both. The weather's miserable, the company's fine. I was going to say the weather again. So anyone who's listening, thanks for listening. Hope you found it interesting, if not enjoyable. And hopefully we'll see you again. Thanks very much, everyone.